This is a photo of Nuka, just serving as a cute visual for you. She's a former foster kitten of mine. My name is Mary Costello. I also want to start by acknowledging that city commissioners are tasked with difficult decisions, and I really do appreciate your time and consideration. I'm a venue manager for the Granada and the Bottleneck, but I'm here to speak as an avid animal lover and foster volunteer for the Lawrence Humane Society. I've cared for orphan kittens for over 10 years now. One of my current projects is called Mass Street Kitten Academy, where I feature adoptable kittens in window displays downtown. We facilitated over 100 adoptions in only 2 years. In the near future, I hope to partner with the Humane Society in opening the first and only cat cafe in Kansas, which I think will be a wonderful addition to downtown Lawrence. I stood before you in 2018 alongside Lawrence Humane and Animal Control in support of ordinance changes you approved that permits lawful trap, neuter, vaccination, and return of outdoor cats. This program helps us in efforts to stop the cycle of overpopulation, which preserves local wildlife and prevents the spread of disease. It not only saves and vastly improves the quality of life for adult cats, it allows the opportunity for kittens to get kittens off the streets and into loving homes. About 80% of kittens born in the US are born outdoors, so the stray intake budget directly affects the most vulnerable of shelter animals. This is only one example of the many needs met with services provided by Lawrence Humane Society. The Crisis Pet Retention Program, which is my favorite service offered, provides members of our community who are struggling the opportunity to care for and keep their beloved companions rather than surrender them during temporary crisis. Testimonies of how this program not only helps the animals, but has quite literally saved human lives as well. I ask you, please do not cut funding to such a vital resource in our community. I'm also here to ask that you reconsider the proposal to close Prairie Park Nature Center. As a former wildlife rehabilitator, I cannot stress enough how important it is that we continue to educate the public on local wildlife preservation. Options for education and rehabilitation are already limited in our area. In Prairie Park, the camps and programs they offer are such uniquely wonderful and valuable assets in our community. So please, I ask that you oppose the recommended closure of Nature Center and the detrimental budget cuts to the Lawrence Humane Society. Thanks for your time. Thank you.
And resident of Prairie Park, I've been having kind of a rough week. So I heard that in some of the budget numbers, some of the considerations that were being given to the budget cuts for the Lawrence Humane Society were coming from recommendations from the police department. And just as a veterinarian, I'd like to be hearing what the thoughts and concerns are of the animal health professionals that are considering, what is going on there. The information we're getting from the Lawrence Humane Society themselves is that they're not being asked to provide less services in exchange for the change in funding. So I think that's really important, especially as you all are talking about the importance coming out of a pandemic of helping deal with or prevent future pandemics. We know that 75% of all new human diseases are coming from animals, and that organizations like humane societies provide essential not only animal healthcare services, but services that end up benefiting our human community members as well in ways that private veterinary services just simply are not able to help provide. I also wanted to obviously speak to Prairie Park as well. I'm fortunate to have a brother who is a urban planner and a mother who was a manager of a local city park where I grew up in Northern Virginia for almost my entire life. And again, as many others asked, how is closure of the park in our interests? It seems like a short-term move that has very big long-term consequences, as the schools are asking for closures because they don't have enough young people in those communities. And you hear all these people saying that they moved here with their families to be near that nature center. And Prairie Park is one of the few schools in the eastern side that is not on the chopping block for consideration for closure. Maybe there's a reason for that. And maybe that Keystone institution argument is really strong. I also am asking, as many people here are showing such a strong interest in the nature center, why is this on the slate for removal as opposed to for change or rehabilitation? If there are so many people here who are interested, I had the opportunity to see my mother take a small farm park and change that with help from friends groups, community. You all are talking in other parts of the plan about the revenue opportunities for other recreational facilities, and trying to make sure there are scholarship opportunities for low-income people to go and use those recreational opportunities at the same time that you're looking to close a park in their very neighborhoods where they can get services for free. Just on a personal level, I echo those whose toddlers are crying at home about the closure of their park. And as a woman who had postpartum depression when her kids were first born, we know that people who are able to get out of the house and to be out and about with their babies and not stuck at home with them crying do better. And that was that place for me when I was going through that time. So again, with my mother's experience, we know that parks are often at the heart of our communities. So please do not rip our heart out. Thank you.
I'm here to speak about the Humane Society. There's an ecosystem and interconnectedness between shelters, between private veterinary practice, between animal rescue orgs. Prairie Park itself, with its role in wild animal rescue, is part of that. Each one of these touch each other. And I feel like cuts to something as central as a Humane Society ends up spreading out responsibility and cost to everyone else in the community. And I have to ask, is that cut really saving money, or is it just a hidden way to distribute cost across other organizations, other people, perhaps end up taking money out of the city budget in some other less visible way? Because ultimately we're not going to have fewer animals, and the Humane Society is not going to try to deliver fewer services. It's just going to be harder for them to do it. So somehow this shortfall is going to get made up. But getting to that, like the way it gets made up, the difficulty of doing that work, the biggest reason I was moved to come in and give comments tonight is out of concern for the people who work and volunteer in animal rescue and care. There's a snowball effect happening across the country right now, a building up of stressors and problems in the animal care and rescue organizations, with staffing shortages that are expected to continue and worsen for the next 8 to 10 years. You've got costs increasing, budgets falling, and sorry, I just lost my place for a minute. I don't think we should be contributing to the snowball and making things worse. We should be looking locally, how can we get ahead of it? Because this year it's 100,000, it's going to be worse next year, and it's going to be worse the year after that. One of the invisible costs to animal care and rescue is that these jobs have some of the highest rates of burnout, depression, and suicide among any job. Animal rescue is tied for the absolute highest rates with fire and police work. I know that we've got stories in our community about the kind of struggles and difficulties that people in animal care and rescue have had in the last 2 years with all the additional stresses of COVID. Too often we ask the vulnerable to care for the vulnerable in our society. And that's what I think is the challenge facing animal rescue and care right now, is that some of the people who are the most vulnerable in that work are being asked to care for our vulnerable animals. And right now they need our support, not further cuts. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Shannon Wells, and I am the Executive Director of the Lawrence Humane Society. You guys have an unenviable job here, and I really appreciate that you would take time to hear all of us tonight, so thank you. I want to use the time I have to explain the scope of services that the Lawrence Humane Society provides and the number of animals from Lawrence that we historically serve each year. The decision to propose cuts to the Lawrence Humane Society's funding may be based on an incomplete understanding of the number of animals that we serve each year. I hope to clarify the important role that we play in providing critical city services and highlight that we are serving significantly more animals than just those that are impounded by animal control. In late 2018, the City of Lawrence entered into an agreement with the Lawrence Humane Society to provide animal sheltering services for a set fee through 2023. We received notification on July 6th of the city manager's proposal to reduce the city's funding for animal sheltering services by 27% in 2023. Under our agreement with the City of Lawrence, the Lawrence Humane Society receives animals from animal control as well as from the public within city limits. We care for all animals impounded, and we work with the city for swift disposition of impounded animals and assist the police department and animal control after hours with all ill and injured animals. The services that we perform are essential to public health and safety. Despite the proposed reduction in funding, the volume of animals needing sheltering services in Lawrence has been consistent since 2016. The single largest category of animal intake under the contract for services with the city of Lawrence is stray impounds. A 7-year review of the data shows the average number of strays the average number of stray Lawrence animals impounded each year is 1,361. On average, 37% of those strays originate through animal control, and 63% come directly to the shelter from the public. Although stray animals are the largest category of shelter impounds, animals come to this shelter in a variety of other ways, including being seized for cruelty or neglect, bite quarantine, owner surrender, among others. Similar to stray impounds, an average of 25% of all Lawrence animals impounded at the animal shelter originated through animal control, and 75% originate from the public direct to the shelter. Over the last 7 years, animal impounds through animal control have gradually declined, but the number of animals received from the public has increased. Looking at both origin sources, animal control and from the public, the number of Lawrence animals receiving animal sheltering has been constant between 2016 and 2021, with an average of 2,194 Lawrence animals impounded per year. Mid-year stats for this year look to be on similar trend. The volume of Lawrence animal sheltering each year is the same. Thank you.
Sorry. Don't go far.
Good evening. My name is Alina Alterman. I'm the Director of Development and Communications at the Lawrence Humane Society. And I'm here to talk tonight about all of the services that Lawrence Humane provides to this community, in addition to caring for stray and surrendered animals, reuniting stray animals with their families, and adopting homeless animals into homes. I grew up in this community. I grew up volunteering at the Lawrence Humane Society, and the services that we are providing now are so much more expansive, so much more robust, and more progressive than ever before. Through our new in-house veterinary clinic, we provide spay and neuter surgeries, microchipping, vaccines, dentals, and life-saving specialty surgeries for pets of low-income pet owners, not just the animals in our own care. In 2021, we treated over 1,200 owned animals. This was our biggest year, but we're really trying to beat that in 2022. We know that by providing this essential care to our community members, we're eliminating animal suffering, creating a healthier community, and making sure that our most vulnerable residents don't have to choose between caring for themselves and caring for their pets. In October 2020, we launched the Crisis Pet Retention Program, CPR. This supports pet owners who are experiencing challenges related to poverty, houselessness, job loss, and other systemic issues and inequities that are important to this city and this council. Through this program, we ensure that pet owners have access to pet food and supplies, essential and life-saving veterinary care, and support with pet deposits and pet rent, so that pet ownership is not a barrier to accessing safe, affordable housing. Moreover, we provide temporary animal boarding for pet owners who are experiencing houselessness, a physical or mental health crisis, or some other challenge. Since launching this program, we've provided veterinary care at Lawrence Humane to nearly 800 owned pets from 480 households. We've helped 38 families with housing assistance like pet rent and pet deposits. We've provided financial assistance with private veterinary care bills to 90 animals from 82 households, and provided temporary crisis pet boarding to 138 animals from 93 households. Because of this program, owner surrenders of pets were reduced by 25% in 2021. These essential programs are not funded by the city, but are vital for Lawrence residents. They're funded by grants and private donations, and it's my job to fundraise for them. It's the unfortunate reality that if Lawrence Humane is to sustain this cut in 2023, the impact will be felt first and foremost by our community's low-income pet owners and most vulnerable residents. To survive such a cut, we'll need to shift fundraising efforts from the vital programs that I described to instead fundraising for the essential city services that should be funded by our city. Since the CPR program launched, we've provided over $100,000 worth of subsidized assistance. That's money that we've been able to fundraise and not burden the city with. If there is a cut, we'll have to shift fundraising efforts to fill.
Time.
Thank you.
Are you doing good? Okay.
Hi, I'm Katie Barnett, counsel for the Lawrence Humane Society. Just simply having a place to house stray animals is no longer something that adequately addresses the needs of our community. My purpose here is to just run through the strategic plan and explain how the services we provide meets your intended goals for our community. With regard to the unmistakable identity, Lawrence has historically been a leader with regard to animal welfare in ordinances, policies, and best practices with our animal shelter. All of the details of that is, of course, attached in our written testimony that was submitted to you. Excuse me. But we worked with the city in 2019 this innovative and progressive ordinance that works with everything that we do at the Lawrence Humane Society to create a safe and humane Lawrence. If we don't have that support, then we need the programs and services to make that vision come to a reality. You can have all the ordinances you want and all the policies you want to be progressive, but if it's not funded and it's supported with programs and services, then we never really get to who we intended to be with those policies and ordinances. You can't have a strong and welcoming neighborhood when 80% of the animals are surrendered to the animal shelter because they can't access pet-friendly housing. Those people who can find housing may struggle to afford pet rent or become evicted and have trouble finding temporary shelter that accepts pets, or are in mental health crisis and need inpatient treatment. And as you heard from Alina, those are all services and programs that the Lawrence Humane Society provides. You can't have a city that's safe and secure without a shared desire of creating a safe and humane community. At Lawrence Humane Society and the city, when we worked together in 2019, we all recognized that nuisance animal behavior can be spotted, but we provide resources to mitigate that behavior so it doesn't become a public safety issue. The animal shelter is a safe haven for owners who can no longer care for their pets, so Lawrence doesn't have a stray roaming dog problem like other cities. And animals are not suffering neglect because of systemic economic insecurity. There's no prosperity and economic security without the programs that Alina mentioned. And finally, there's truly no connected city without the Lawrence Humane Society working with human health and social service agencies within the Lawrence community to get access to social service programs for their pets. 65% of Lawrence households have pets, and that means the unhoused as well. So we, taking calls after hours, taking animals from the public, all achieve the highest outcomes in our region for animals and for public health and safety and creating a community. Thank you.
Hi, Commissioners, Ms. Mayor, Mr. Manager. I'm John Hanley. I'm Chairman of the Board of the Lawrence Humane Society. I'm thrilled to be here on behalf of the board and also to represent and peer alongside shelter leadership, as well as volunteers, as well as so many citizens out expressing their dedication to Lawrence Humane and Prairie Park. It's pretty awesome to see. I'll be brief because you heard the numbers and you've heard about the programs from Shannon and Katie and Alina. But in 2018, when we started the most recent agreement with Lawrence Humane Society, that was the same time we undertook a fundraising effort to build the brand new Lawrence Humane Society, which is out on 19th now across from the fairgrounds. And we did that with not just donations from the city, but also donations from thousands of supporters throughout our region. And we did that with the purpose of expanding services like you heard about tonight, and with the goal of continuing to fulfill and expand animal control services in partnership with the city. And you heard Shannon talk about the 2,200 animals impounded from Lawrence City alone in the last year, and 65% roughly of those were handled first and foremost by Lawrence Humane Society staff. So we think the partnership works pretty well. We think it's a really nice model of a public-public partnership. And honestly, I think it's money really well spent. Thank you for your time tonight, and appreciate your service. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, City Commissioners, Mr. Owens. My name is Sherry Pigg, and I have been a resident of Lawrence since 1976 and a volunteer at the Humane Society since 2017. I'm not here to talk about the thousands of animals that the Humane Society helps every year by finding them new homes or rescuing them from bad situations. Instead, I'm here to speak just about two animals, and that would be Sammy and Roxy. Sammy's the cat and Roxy's the dog. I adopted both of them from the Lawrence Humane Society several years ago, and now they're the best friends. If not for the shelter, both of them may have died on the streets. Sammy grew up on the mean streets of Lawrence, and yes, they are mean when you're a little animal that has no home. He, his mother, and his siblings were captured by animal control while his mom was attempting to teach her little family how to hunt from someone's bird feeder. That was the only way they had to survive. Roxy was transferred to the Lawrence Humane Society from another agency. She obviously had had an owner in the past because she had been spayed and she was microchipped. Unfortunately, her previous owner didn't seem to care about her very much. She was very, very timid. Her coat was dirty and she needed a lot of dental work. Obviously, she had just been running wild because perhaps her family couldn't take care of her. Humane Society staff took both of my animals in, gave them the care that they needed, and put them up for adoption. I was fortunate enough to be able to bring them into my home. Both of these animals have brought me much happiness and laughter to my house. There's nothing funnier than an Aussie doing sploots or a cat doing zoomies all over the house for no reason at all, just because he can. And without the Humane Society, they wouldn't have been able to experience that joy. Both my pets have improved both my mental and my physical health. And they are what made me decide to become a volunteer at the Humane Society, where I could see all the great work that they are doing there for the animals. When you consider the shelter's budget, please remember how important companion animals are to Lawrenceans. These animals are living beings who only ask.
Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sue. Thank you for all of your attention. You guys have paid really good attention to everyone. I've been watching you, and I'm really impressed. I didn't pay attention as well as you did. I'm here as a volunteer for the Lawrence Humane Society, and I'm nervous, but I feel it is very important to represent the staff and the volunteers of the Lawrence Humane Society. It's important to me, and it's important to all the animal lovers that reside in our town. I think someone that came before me said that 65% of Lawrence residents are pet owners. And I'm guessing many of them believe that their pets are family. I know I do, and everyone I know does. And as a volunteer for the Lawrence Humane Society for 5 years, it should have been longer than that, but I've personally witnessed the staff and what they do and how hard they work. They are the smartest, most creative, most educated, most dedicated, wonderful people I have ever worked with. And I am extremely lazy. I would not be here. I would not be a volunteer if I did not think that they deserved every minute of my time. They need our help, and they provide mind-boggling number of services to our community. Please, if there's any way that you cannot cut the budget of the Lawrence Humane Society, please double it. Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Hello, I work at the Lawrence Humane Society as a medical associate. So I work in the clinic under my boss, Shannon Wells. So as of today, I sedated and prepped 12 animals for spay neuter surgeries. I vaccinated each one of them. We made sure that they were microchipped. And I also help diagnose a stray dog with heartworms, and we started his treatment today. And he will be made available for adoption tomorrow after his dog test. I would like to share a story, my favorite story that I like to tell that I got to experience from working at the shelter, which I've been there for almost 2.5 years now. But we got a stray dog from animal control. They called us ahead of time and said, this dog looks really rough. Someone thinks that they saw it get hit by a car. So we immediately kind of prepped for the intake. And whenever we got this dog, it was pretty apparent that she had been abused and not hit by a car. She had wounds on all of her wrists, showing that she was tied up. She had several broken bones in her body as well. Her intake process was incredibly difficult, treating her injuries and also treating the dog emotionally. She was very upset on intake, and it wasn't until about 2 or 3 days later that she learned and understood that we were helping her. Seeing that change in that dog, seeing her trust us and be happy when we got her from her kennel was honestly life-changing. I started as a volunteer in the shelter and then fell in love, started working there. This dog specifically changed my whole life. I mean, I was not going to pursue animal medicine or anything. This was just a job to me until this stray dog. And now I'm on a pre-vet track, and that's what I want to do with my life. I want to do this every single day, and it is extremely hard, and we get a lot of stray dogs. Like I said, the 12 animals that we did today, we did spays and neuters so that they can go on the adoption floor tomorrow. And tomorrow we'll do the same thing. So more dogs can go up front, and so that we can open up more kennels and holding for more stray animals. It is incredibly difficult. It takes a lot of resources. And we all work there because we love it. And that's what we want to do every single day, along with our volunteers and fosters that came out today to support us as well. I just wanted to share that because the thought of having less resources to do the story that I just said less, I think would be detrimental to a lot of stray animals that come in. Thank you guys so much for listening to us today.
I specifically came here today to talk about the Humane Society. I think everything that I need to say has been said. I would like to especially praise their crisis pet protection program and their pet food pantry. This one, he says hi. He has benefited greatly in these last couple of months from both of those programs, and I would just like to say that over the last 5 years, if I hadn't had him, I had a couple of mental health crises before I moved here that I likely wouldn't have survived, and I am not the only person like that. So funding the Humane Society is directly saving not just animal lives, which is a noble goal in and of itself, but also human lives, the lives of your constituents.
Hi, thank you. My name is actually Lisa. I'm using my partner's account. And I have worked at the Lawrence Humane Society for almost a year now, first as volunteer coordinator and now in the clinic. And I wanted to tell a story about something that we do at the Humane Society that I'm not sure that people are broadly aware that we do. It's been mentioned a few times that we're available 24/7 through the on-call phone to help with stray and injured animals. And I wanted to tell a little bit about my experience with the on-call phone And I apologize, this story does get a little bit dark, but I think overall it has a happy ending. One of my first weeks having the on-call phone, I got a call in the middle of the night. Dog had been hit by a car, to go out and help retrieve the body of the dog that unfortunately didn't make it. And so we do work with the police when we do this, and there's a deputy who will wait with the animal until we get there. But what makes this a good and wonderful service that we are providing for the people of Lawrence is that by going and retrieving the dog's remains, I'm able to treat that animal respectfully, bring its body back, make sure that it's cared for, look for identifying marks. And the next morning, we were able to find out whose dog this was so that they were able to know what had happened. And also be able to get them the ashes. And sometimes these stories turn out better. So I'm sorry, my personal example was one where the dog didn't make it, but there are times where the dog is still alive when we get there, or the cat, and we're able to take it to an emergency vet clinic, get it cared for. And I'm not sure that people realize that when we say we provide 24/7 services, that's the kind of thing that we're talking about. And I do think that it's an important service. And while a $100,000 budget cut to the Humane Society wouldn't cause us to close, it could cause us to cut services such as that one to the people of Lawrence. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, I have a few questions. So to start with, my understanding is we're going to increase, the proposal is to increase economic development by 20%. What mechanisms are we putting in place to track the success or determine what we consider to be success in providing additional dollars for the economic? Are we asking them to do specific tasks, or just give me an idea?
Sure. And this 20% isn't across all economic development expenditures. Those are in our partner funding agreements and not across all of the economic development budget. This is going to be centered on the Ernst & Young Cities Economic Development Strategic Plan. And we would use the same measurements that are embedded in those. And those also relate very well to our strategic plan key performance indicators.
And so we'll be asking them to keep track of that throughout the year as they're spending the money or doing economic development.
We will. We need to get into some agreements and negotiate some agreements, which we already have, and we've improved the metrics that are related to each of those. Having the specificity of the economic development strategic plan shows all of the areas that we as a community and all the partners, not just the city, but the partner agencies in the county and other agencies need to work together on, because we identified a lot of gaps compared to other cities that we consider peer cities and what they're spending and accomplishing related to economic development.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. So on the Prairie Park situation, I heard a few reasons as to why we believed it was important that would be cut at this time, that the program, I should say. What I didn't hear, and maybe I just missed it, is why are we proposing to cut the Humane Society budget?
I think Anthony Brixius just went on camera.
Anthony Brixius, Deputy Chief of Police, and Chief Lockhart's with us via YouTube, but his computer crashed, so he wasn't able to speak. So what we're doing is actually examining what services we're getting for that. When you look at it in the context of a police department budget, we utilize the Humane Society quite a bit, actually, in our relationship with animal control. But we're actually starting to look at what services we're utilizing and are we paying the correct amount for that. That doesn't necessarily mean that the Humane Society is not providing a valuable service to the city as a whole. But when you look at it in the context of the strategic plan, which is what we're asked to do by each department, is we're looking at the services that we're getting within the police department when we take them. So the entire Humane Society budget's in the police department right now, but doesn't necessarily represent the services that are being conducted with, and it may, we're just in early discussions with the Humane Society.
So you said you kind of been looking at how it compares with how it lines up with our strategic plan. So how does it not line up with our strategic plan? And what were your specific reasons for cutting it? Those were general reasons, but what's the specific?
Yeah, so when we're looking at the strategic plan for most of the police department, you're looking at safe and secure, right? And I don't know that the Humane Society necessarily falls within the context of that within the police department budget or the strategic or the SASs that are included in the police department. It may fall in with other places in the city. And I think that was mentioned by one of the people. So what we're really doing is we're looking at what services is the Humane Society providing for the police department and what are we paying for those services?
Okay. So did we score the Humane Society like we did the Prairie Park? Did we actually have a score for that?
I don't believe that individual category was scored unless it was done at the leadership meeting, which is where a lot of this conversation was taking place. I was just part of the police department's piece.
Okay.
Mayor, Commissioners, this is Casey Toomey, Assistant City Manager, and I'll provide an assist here to Deputy Chief Brixius. That is part of the patrol program, so it was scored as part of the patrol program.
Okay. Okay, so the patrol program scored 57.8. So that's what I'm reading here. That's relatively high compared to what I've seen. So, okay. I want to jump to, thank you, Anthony. Anthony, appreciate that.
I guess maybe a little more discussion on, we've heard some from the Humane Society on what the contract covers. And I know we're not going to negotiate a contract tonight, but talk to me about the process you're planning to go through between now and when we finish the budget.
Sure. We're probably overdue in having some of these conversations. I know just as I was coming to the city 3 years ago, there was a good agreement and a start and that was referenced tonight. Some of the ideas that the police department has floated, they've led us to this. There may be some real other opportunities we haven't looked at that may be mutually beneficial. So while we're looking for some savings, it may be that there's opportunities to increase services in some areas and both agencies get more efficient. Those would be all things we're overdue in having those conversations. I know past commissions have also talked about that. So we look forward to engaging in those. And as I said, our target is $100,000 in this budget. If through those discussions, it turns out that it's $20,000, then we will have to do something to adjust the budget. But we don't have, we think through those discussions, some savings in reduction in service areas might still be something we can explore.
Okay. Those are my questions.
That's all your questions? Okay.
Questions?
I think they're questions. We'll see. I think there's questions. So when I appreciate the list that you sent out to us today about the scoring, all the scores for the various programs. It was really helpful. But what I noticed in it is that there's 5 programs that score as low or lower than Prairie Park. And so I'm curious as to why we didn't focus on some of those to try to pull some money out of that, cut some of those programs or something within those programs to address this budgetary need.
I'm sorry, you have me at disadvantage. I don't have that document in front of me. I'll try and pull it up.
Ones they are.
That'd be great.
One is court service. It's an Office of City Attorney. It was scored 23.4. The other is the Office of Police Chief, which only scored a 32.8. Professional Standards of Policing, 29.7. The golf course, 39.1. And school crossing guards at 111,000. I'm sorry, that's the budget amount. It's scored 28.1, excuse me. I'm a little focused here. And since we're looking at the cuts from Prairie Park, what looks like unfunded 433, that's $8 million worth of funding that's in those other 5 programs. Why aren't we looking at those more closely line by line to see if there's some funding there that we can cut? I can't imagine that out of $8 million, there wouldn't be something there.
I agree. That's something we could look at, and we will over the next few weeks. I would say, even hearing tonight, reducing accountability services for policing isn't the direction of a lot of the conversations that we've had. And so that I can tell you the answer to that one right now. So we certainly can take another look, and if it's not whole scale elimination of things, it's reduction in different areas, and that may be then.
Yeah, I would never propose it. And I don't want Chief Lockhart to think that I'm trying to propose to defund at all. But it just seems to me that if you're looking at the score in the Humane Society is within the patrol, which is ranked at 57.8, but we got 2 other line items within the police budget that are ranked lower. Actually 3 that are ranked. Why aren't we looking at that where the Humane Society is ranking 57.8? Technically they are. Why aren't we looking at these other line items to pull that money from if that's what we need is $100,000?
Sure. And I don't want to back too far off of this, but that we've been evolving this model. And we're starting to try and use it more and more each year, but it isn't the precise scientific tool that some people would try and make it out to be. And so I'm not backing off. It is a very useful tool that has been implemented since before I got here, and we're using it more and more and more. There's a lot of data that has to feed into it. And so it does take what you're suggesting, and that is kind of digging deeper into it. For instance, Patrol Services is a massive program that combines a whole bunch of things, including the animal control. Ideally, in program-based budgeting, you'd start to break off some of these programs so that you can really assess elements of them more specifically. We haven't evolved there yet. In this case, with police and patrol services, we haven't done that. In some of these other cases, we still need to do the work to make it a more useful tool and make it more transparent so that the community can use it in their engagement with us.
Yeah, I mean, in Officer Brixius, when he talked about one of the things they consider is should the Humane Society be in the police budget? And I appreciate that conversation because I know we've had it in past years where the idea of having animal control done totally by the Humane Society, that's something that I pushed for several years ago. And I think it's well worth the conversation as to how that would work. And I appreciate that, but I just would hope that my suggestion would be that we look at those line items a little bit closer to see if there's some way. I mean, because when you look at the Office of the Police Chief and the professional standards of policing, that's almost $6 million right there of funding. And I didn't see anything unfunded in those 2 line items. So I'd appreciate a second look at that. Okay.
Sure.
Commissioner, if I may as well. And I think Craig talked a little about it. I don't think anybody's proposing cutting professional standards or what they do, and the Office of the Chief acts in that same way in developing policies and overseeing and making sure things are going right. When we talk about looking at what we looked at for the Humane Society, and you look at the KPIs that are addressed specifically to safe and secure, and the police department, you talk about sexual and domestic violence, you talk about Part 1 crimes, you talk about trust and emergency services, and it didn't really fit in there. And that's why I kind of said that conversation before is that I don't know if that's the right place. So we were really just looking at the services that the police department uses in relation to animal control.
Appreciate that. Well, I can tell you, I've been doing budgets for 30 years and I've never met a budget where there couldn't be some more efficiencies found somewhere. So appreciate that. And then the other, can I go?
I just want to thank everybody for coming out and voicing their opinion and letting us know. That's part of the process, and I appreciate it. And all the people that send in emails as well, good and bad. I always want to hear what people are thinking because that informs my decision. I think as the mayor said, we've seen how much people really care about Prairie Park, and how much people care about the Lawrence Humane Society. And that's very enlightening, especially to me, and not unexpected. And that just shows we have a little bit more work to do. So I just wanted to go ahead and thank everybody, because I know it's been a long night, and I know we're all kind of hitting the end. So thank you.